Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to style a piece of text independently from the text around it, just like the examples you see here. Now, you don't need any extra plugins for this. You can even use the free version of Elementor because all we're going to be using is the text editor element, which is a basic element included in the free version. Now, the possibilities with this are endless. You can do so many different styles and designs with this. It's a great thing to have under your tool belt of web design, and let's get started. Let me show you how we're going to do it. Alright, so I'm just going to be working on a blank canvas like I do for most of my tutorials. You can add this text anywhere you want on your website. So what I'm going to do to get this started is I'm just going to drag in the text editor widget, and I'm just going to put the text I want in. Alright, so I have my text in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the Style tab, and I'm going to start styling the majority of my text. So what we're styling now, if I come back to my example, is we're styling all of this right here. Okay. So I'm just going to change a color. Let's just kind of make it like the demo, and I'm just going to do kind of a dark green. You can do any color and any styling you want here, or if you kind of want a similar result to what I'm doing, you can kind of follow along. So I'm going to go to the typography now, and I'm just going to make it, let's say, Open Sans. Let's give it a weight of 400. Let's do text transform of uppercase. And then let's change the size to about 40. Now what I'm going to do real quick is, you may or may not have to do this depending on where you're adding the text, is I'm just going to come to the section real quick. And I'm just going to change the content width to 500. That way it, wraps on a new line. So, coming back to my text editor widget, we can see we have the majority of our text good to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the Content tab where I entered in my text, and I'm going to make sure I click the little Text tab right here. So we're viewing the actual text, not the visual. You see the difference? Visual tab and text. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to the word that I want to highlight. In my case, it's going to be different. I'm going to put a span tag before it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an open bracket, and then span, and then I'm going to do space, class, equals, quotation, and I'm going to give it a class name. So I'm just going to call it pop text, and then I'm going to put another quote to close that, and then a closing bracket. And then I'm going to come after the word or words that I want to highlight, and I'm going to put the open bracket again. I'm going to put a forward slash, and then span, and then a close bracket. So yours should look like this. I'll kind of stretch this out so you can see it a little bit easier. So you have the span with the class name, the closing bracket, and then the closing span tag. So just kind of follow that, and you should be good to go. And you'll know you'll have it right when the text looks just normal, right? So if you're missing one of these, like that, your text might be broken. So if your text looks normal, you probably have it right. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go click Update, and I'm going to click Preview and come to the front end of the site. If you've seen some of my other tutorials, you know I like to add the CSS code under the additional CSS section of the WordPress customizer or my child theme style.css. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target that class that I put in the span. So you remember this, the pop text class. I'm going to come and I'm going to put a period and then put that class here. And then I'm going to put my open bracket, which automatically puts the closing one. I'm going to hit enter just to give me a little space. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start styling the word or words that I wrapped the span tags around. So let's give it a color of purple. I'm just going to kind of recreate the demo. So I'm going to give it a color purple, and you'll see that changed to purple. Now let's change the font family. So I'm just going to change the font to something a little bit more subtle in this case. And I'm just going to go Helvetica. Now, you'll want to make sure that the font family you put here is a font that you actually have installed on the website or a system font. Otherwise, it won't actually change the font that you enter. Let me give it a font weight. I'm going to make it bolder, so let's say 900. Make it really bold. Let me give it a bottom border. So let's say border bottom. Let's go 1 pixel solid. And let's make it the same color we made the text, so purple. All right, so as you can see here, we have this nice and styled. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to add a hover effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to, get out of our current declaration, and we're going to go below that. Make sure you're outside of the closing bracket. And I'm going to type out the same class, so pop-text. Now the difference here is I'm going to put a colon and then hover. And then I'm going to put my open curly bracket. So you can see here is we put the same class as we have here, except we put the colon hover after it. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it another color, and we're going to say orange. So the styling that we're applying here is only active when you hover over the text. So you'll see if I hover over it, it changes to orange. Now, one extra little tip I'm going to show you is you can see how when I hover, it's very instant, right? The second I hover, it instantly changes. I'm going to soften that up a bit. I'm going to add a transition. We'll just do all. And then I'm going to make it 1 second just to show you kind of the extreme example. And I'm just going to do ease in out. So you'll see now when I hover, it's going to take 1 second for it to change to orange, which is obviously way too slow. I just wanted to kind of show you what that's doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 0.2 seconds. Even that, I'm actually just going to go 0.1 seconds. So it makes it a little bit softer than instant, but without too much of a delay. So yeah, I kind of like that. I think we could call this good here on this example. I'm just going to go publish real quick just to save that. I'm going to come back to Elementor, and I'm just going to show you that if you move this closing span tag, so I'm just going to, cut, and I'm just going to paste it after the font right here, right? So all I did was, currently the closing span tag was right after the word different. I just moved it to be right after the word font. Okay, so I'm just going to go update and preview the page again, and you'll see that it applied that style to the word font as well. So it'll apply the style to whatever words are between the span tags. I'm just going to pull this out just so you can see it a little bit easier. So you can see here's the opening span tag, and then here's the closing span tag. And then whatever is between those is going to get the style applied to it. So if I come back to the front end, we can see that works just like that. Awesome. So this looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bonus and show you how you can add a link in here with a different style. So I'm just going to come back here. I'm just going to drag the text widget into a new section. All right, so I have my text in here. I'm just going to do the same as before. I'm just going to go to the Style tab, and I'm just going to, change the style real quick. I'm not going to explain all this again because I already kind of did it, so I'm just going to quickly come in here and just adjust it. All right, so same as before, I just quickly styled my text. Now what I want to do is I'm going to highlight and, style the word that I want. So I'm going to go to my text editor just like before. And then I'm going to go to the Content tab and make sure you have the little Text tab selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap, I just want to highlight the word this. I'm also going to link it. So when you click the word this, it actually links you to a page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by doing the open bracket and then href equals and then quote. And then I'm going to put in the pound sign. What that is that's just kind of a dead link. So what you would do is you would put in the link you want right here. So instead of the pound sign, put in the link you want. So for example, you would put in the link right here between the quotes. Now for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to leave it with the pound sign. I'm going to put my closing bracket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my span tag just like I did on my first example. So open bracket span class equals, I'm going to give it a name of, let's say, pop-text alt. I'm going to put my closing span tag after this. Then I'm going to put my closing A tag, so just like that. So let me just drag this just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So what I have here is I have my A tag, okay? You put your link where the pound sign is. And then inside of that, I have my span class, okay? And then after the word I want to highlight, I have my closing span, and then my closing A tag. You should see it looks kind of like this. Remember, if you're missing something, it'll look odd just like that. So you'll know you have it right when it looks, well, right. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Update. I'm going to go to the front end again. I'm going to go back to Customize, where I put my CSS. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new class, and I'm going to target the class I put in my new span, which I put in pop-text alt. And I'm going to go ahead and change the color. And I should also note that you can make any of these style settings whatever you want, okay? There are millions of different options. There are millions of different colors, so literally there are millions of different options. I am just going to do kind of a red. And I'm going to change the font size just to like 1 or 2 pixels larger than what it is. And let me change the font family. I'm just going to use a system font in my example. I'm just going to do free style script. And let me give it a bottom border, or I should say border bottom if you want to get technical. 1 pixel. Now, instead of doing the solid one, I'm going to do a dashed one. And I'm going to make the color the same as my text. So let's do B4. There we go. And let me give it a transition for the hover effect so it's a little bit smoother. Matter of fact, I can just copy what I have here. So transition. Perfect. Now, let me also adjust the hover effect of it. It's looking pretty good how it is. Let me adjust the hover effect. Remember how we did it before. We copy the class, and then we add the colon and then hover. Let's change the color on hover. So let's make it black when you hover. So if we hover, we can see it now changes to black. Let's also make the size of the font a little bit bigger when you hover. So let's go font size. You'll see that I have it set to 44. Let's go ahead and set it to 46, something very subtle. So if you hover, you should see it goes just 2 pixels bigger, which I think that's good. Alright, so this looks good, but you'll notice we have one problem. If we hover over this, you'll see that it pushes the text below it down 2 pixels, which is the amount that we're increasing it by. So you'll see we're going from font size 44 to 46. So when we hover, it's pushing it down by 2 pixels. Now, if I temporarily change this to 56, which is an increase of 12 pixels, you'll see that the problem intensifies. Now, there's actually a very easy fix to this, and I'm going to show you how, just in case you run into it. I'm going to go ahead and hit Publish just to save what we have here. I'm going to come back to Elementor. I'm going to select my text editor widget, go to Typography, and you're going to want to set a line height. I'm just going to set it to 1.4 em, and then I'm going to hit Update. I'm going to come back to the front page here, and I'm going to go back to Customize, Additional CSS. Now you'll see if we hover, this didn't actually fix the problem. We have one more quick thing to do, and I'm just going to quickly change this to 56 temporarily just so you can visually see it a little bit better. So we set the line height, but if we hover, it's still moving the text around it. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and come in to our pop text alt. We're going to go on a new line, and we're going to put vertical align middle. And you'll see if we hover now, nothing else around it moves, and the problem is fixed. Now what's happening here is by default, the text is aligning to the bottom. So you can see the bottom of click is perfectly aligned with the bottom of this. Now when I hover over this, it follows it. So the bottom of this text is still following the bottom of this, and that's what's moving it. When we add the vertical align, rather than aligning it to the bottom, it's aligning it in the middle, and that fixes it. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned some CSS, and I look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial. Thanks.